let's talk about the schools because part of the application is you have to submit your application to schools. So let's talk about the number of schools that you applied to and why those, I think it was about six, seven, might have been more than that. I can't recall how many.
So personally, I researched school long in advance, and we decided to apply to 8 schools. The reason why I chose my schools is what was important to me. I wanted a school that accepts students, historically have accepted students straight out of dental school. So I did my research on that. How many of residents' spot belongs to somebody straight out of school? So that was one. Number two, I did not take the ADAT test, which is another admission test that some schools require for endo residency. So if you don't know about that, maybe do a little bit of research. More and more schools now making it requirement. Some schools said, yeah, you can take it, we'll look at it, but it's not required. So to me, I felt that my application itself is strong enough. I had a good grade and all the other things that needed for the process were there. So I chose not to take the test at this time. And the third thing is the research or the time of the residency. I wanted a residency that is a master's degree and it's in 2-year program. So that was also important to me. And I chose 8 schools to apply. Do you want me to say about how many interviews I got or wait?
Well, no, because that's a great segue because that's an important part of being selected, right? You have to have an interview. You have to have an interview, whether it's virtual or in person. I think you did a combination, but yes, number of interviews. Let's talk about that. But also let's talk about the interview day. If you can just shed some light as to what your interview day was like and any unusual questions that maybe stood out in the interviews that you had as well.
So again, I want to say the importance of working with you, Dr. Darwin, because you and I spoke over Zoom. And my first interview, I was invited to Boston University, and that interview was on Zoom. And it is very easy to lose yourself being on camera all day and kind of, if it's a long interview, you can find yourself drifting or doing this. It's very, things that Dr. Darwin will help you with is how to compose your posture and how not to lose the concentration during that interview. So I prepared really well with you. In fact, we had 3 mock interviews, and I really enjoyed that. That was really helpful because you're nervous wreck going into interview, but going to the mock interviews, you might get those jitters out and iron out your responses. So in an interview, it's very, very super important that you being yourself. So, but you still have to practice how to respond appropriately. And so you have to give good answers, but not sound rehearsed. And it's very important to be yourself because you do not know what the program is looking for that particular year. Because one thing I did learn throughout this process is that maybe what they had last year is not what they're looking for this year around. They are looking for candidates who work hard, who are coachable, who, and let's face it, out of 300 applicants, we're all similar, right? You have to have good grades, you have to have research history, you have to have X, Y, Z. So we are all coming in, and they're just like variations in our resumes. And what makes you stand out, it's actually whatever that program director is looking for that year. So that being said, my first interview was Boston University, and the day of the interview, we started all in a Zoom group meeting, and there were, I want to say, 8 interviewees in the same group. And we were just all talking amongst ourselves first, getting to know each other a little bit, interacting. And then we were invited faculty interview with the program director and clinical director of the Boston University. And that portion of the interview was 45 minutes long. And I did not get any surprising questions. It's always tell me about yourself. Why Boston? Why Endo? What maybe I don't remember if they actually even asked me my strengths and weaknesses. They asked me, I did participate in Olympic Games in 2000 for Bosnia in track and field, so they wanted me to speak about that experience. So really nothing out of ordinary, just really getting to know me kind of questions. And I will say that I had no previous endodontic experience, and they did not seem to be bothered by that. So they didn't ask me anything about endo procedures or literature that I've read and anything like that.
Yeah, they want candidates to be teachable.
Exactly.
Because there's a lot for them to teach, and there's a lot for you to learn and teach yourself. With regards to, you know, what's in the literature, what's the evidence-based practices, best practices behind some of the concepts that you're going to be learning as a specialist. So you had one interview at BU. Any other interviews?
Yes. So I was also invited to LSU interview, and that interview was in person. And I must say it was very enjoyable experience. I traveled down to Louisiana, New Orleans. This is in New Orleans. And it was really fun. We all met up. We had the breakfast. There were only 7 people invited. So we were just sitting. And I will say this, they were residents, the first and second year and the current residents with us, program director, chair of the department, and we were all sitting around talking. And then we were given tour of the school, and then we were invited into interviews, individual interviews. In the room, there were a professor who is a part-time professor, 2 part-time professors and the chair department and the director of the program. So 4 people interview you, and you kind of sit across from them. And interview was only 15 minutes long, which is not a lot of time. You have to really choose your time wisely and make sure that you don't repeat yourself. They already read your resume, so choose that time to just impress them with something that is not on your resume, maybe. But that interview was not that at all long, and it was nothing was asked weird that I was not expecting. Again, tell me about yourself, why endo, and pretty much that was it. And I was offered a spot.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I wanted to mention. You know, those of you that are applying to endo, most of you now know that most endo programs, if not 99.9% of them, do not participate in a match. Meaning that interview day, if you've been granted an interview, you have come a long way. But also keep in mind, because that program or these programs don't participate in match, you could and very may will get an offer that day, or if not within 48 hours. And you have to be ready to push the button that says yes or that you accept. So it's a little bit different. You know, there is no rank list that you have to submit with some of the other specialty programs. So that's why you, as a candidate, in addition to all the work that you've done on the front end, you have to know where these programs rank on your list, because you may have 2 or 3 or 4 interviews, and any one of those interviews you may get an acceptance or be granted an acceptance. And you have to evaluate not only before the interview where those programs are, but you also have to evaluate at the moment, based on those interviews, what your own personal feedback is about the program. And that's some of the things that we talk about and teach and go over in the one-on-one training, the platinum professional training. So you mentioned LSU, which was your second interview, and acceptance. So you had 2 interviews,
And
two acceptances.
yes.
So now you've got 2 issues that you got to figure out so that they combine into one program.
Next assignment is go to the next video. Go to the next video right now. Go, go, go. Love, peace, and smiles. Go to the next video. Go to the next video.